Paraphilia is an experience of reoccurring or intense sexual arousal to atypical objects,
Hmm.
places, situations, fantasies, behaviors, or individuals. To date, there is no broad scientific consensus for definite boundaries between what are considered unconventional sexual interests and kinks, fetishes, and paraphilias. So that's all clear then. Um,
Sounds a
so
lot
the lineup.
like your relationship with records, actually. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, and it's John, and it's music. John is going to be offering up something for me to go off and listen to, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to discuss it at length. John's going to kind of school me on the tune, the album, and whatever else. But in order for us to get started on that, John, you're going to have to offer me up what it is exactly we're going to be listening to and discussing. What have you to say, sir?
And the dance moves as well.
Yeah,
So the
please.
band, very little known band from NYC called the Velvet Underground.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
And
I know you have a knowledge of them,
yes.
but I'm banking on you not knowing this song, which is called Foggy Notion.
It's funny it's named that. Because I'm trying to sift through my foggy notions. I don't think that I'm familiar with this one,
Okay.
or if I am,
Well, I
it's
guess
been wiped from
we're gonna
my
find
memory.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. Well, I will go off and give this Velvet Underground tune a listen and let you know what I think of Foggy Notion upon my return.
Here we go, rolling on one. She's over by the corner, got her hands by her side. This is the harder. Ooh, tell that bitch she might die. Well, I got a fucking notion. Do it again. Over by the corner. Do it again. I got my Calvin lotion, baby. Do it again. Well, I got a fucking notion. Do it again.
Love this jangly blues sound to it, and at times, like little hints, the tone of the guitar, particularly just there in the beginning, before the vocals fully came in, kind of reminded me almost of like surf rock guitar tones, not the music that's being played, just the tonality of it. But yeah, I love this. It's kind of like I don't know. This is probably you know around when I came into this world. But so it sounds silly coming from me, but there's kind of like this throwback quality to it. It's not like overproduced or like, wall of sound or anything like that, which also predates me. But there is this, I don't know, kind of like a little bit of a stripped back quality to it. Now, I'll say to this point, because of that, I'm not picking up a lot of bass right now, or it's not as forward as I would like. But I do love that backbeat, and these jangly guitars and that blues progression are fucking lovely. Love the way the guitars are playing together. There's the bass.
Do something that I never did before. I rushed right down to a flower store. I bought her a bundle of beautiful bags. Don't you know something? She sent it right back. Telling me, telling me, telling me, telling me, ooh, telling me, telling me, telling me, telling me.
Oh, nice bass. Ah,
She's over by the corner.
oh man, the way the guitars are commingling, the interplay between them is so good. It's so good that for me it's like I don't know which I like better, because at this point they are like symbiotic. They need one another. One isn't better than the other because together they sound amazing, and they almost become this one force within the song. Just this amazing galloping frictious of the rhythm, and then all this like slick bluesy lead work that accompanies it, and it layers so well. It sounds great. The bass is starting to stick out to me a bit more. I don't know why, but earlier during the verses, it was getting a little harder for me to discern, which is concerning because I'm a bass player. But it is maybe I was just wooed by the that jangly guitar sound, but it is starting to come into focus a bit more for me now. Loving this. Sounds great.
Got her hands by her sides. They hit her harder, harder, harder. Well, they thought you might die. Well, like a fucking ocean. Do it again. Over in the corner. Do it again. I got my calamine lotion. Do it again.
It's the second time.
I got a fucking lotion.
Calamine
Do
lotion.
it again. Woo.
Okay. Rhythm cuts out.
Baby, do something that I never did before. I rushed right down to a flower store. I bought her a bundle of beautiful bags. Now, baby, don't you know something? She sent it right back. Ooh.
Oh,
Oh, telling me, telling me, telling me, telling me, woo, don't hit me, telling me, woo, telling me.
I don't know what it was, but something about the tone of that lead guitar, just in that little bit right there, reminded me music, like notation, none of that the same. Just the tone of that lead guitar kind of reminded me of the tone of the guitar in back in the USSR. by the Beatles, which is interesting. I didn't think that I would be thinking about that during the song at all, but there you go. And maybe I'm all alone on an island in that, but there's something about that sound. Let's take it back. That bit. Fade out. I should. Yeah, that was Brace Yourself, another great song offered up by John. Yeah, Velvet Underground, man. This is another good tune by them, obviously. Yeah, I loved this kind of like almost back to basics kind of sound. I don't know about necessarily for them, but just in general, like this lovely bluesy flirting with rockabilly-ish kind of sounds, and even the tone again reminded me a little bit of some like surf rock tone on guitars. I really enjoyed this song a lot. I love the choice to not go heavy on the production and just kind of let the song speak for itself. It all sounds great. The rhythm guitar and the lead guitar were fabulous in the song. I would definitely want to check this out again. Great offering by John. I'd love to learn more about this. I spoke of the production, and it has this kind of like organic quality to it, right? Where they all just sort of sat down, plugged in, and kind of just played. And whatever they captured. And it, like, in this case, what they ended up capturing was, like, in my opinion, magic, because this just sounded lovely. So if that's what they did, and then they just decided, hey, let's not touch this too much, let's just kind of leave it as it is, I think is an excellent choice. Just a wonderfully like organic sounding finished product, where it just appeared like some studio musicians went in, plugged in, and just played. Yeah, good stuff. All right, let's get back to John.
What did you make of this? Did you know it?
No, I don't think I did. But I did really enjoy it. So it kind of starts off, and there is this sort of like a verbal warning or like heads up that things are recording, and you get some like tinkering little blues stuff at the beginning. And it's already very organic sounding, like a bunch of guys just got in the room, the Velvet Underground got into a room, and, just sort of, said, hey, we're going to fuck around with this little jam, and we're going to record it and see what happens, which I love. I love that's, yeah. It just gives it more of this, like,
I thought you would.
Yeah, like a fly on the wall kind of glimpse into the studio or whatever the setting was where they recorded this. And there's the song kind of takes shape, and you get these lovely jangly blues kind of sound to this progression, and almost just through tonality alone, hints of like surf rock tones to the guitar as well. And there's something that's something I didn't think I would be saying when turning on the Velvet Underground song. So this is kind of like an interesting, kind of almost, and I laughed saying that this has a throwback sound to it because it probably came out around the time I was beginning my existence here on this, floating soccer ball. But it did have this like older kind of quality to the blues sound to everything that I would assume predates this 80s, early 80s kind of sound or late 70s sound or whatever that we've got going on here. So further back. Hey, well, I'm sure you'll give me a better hint than just waves as you tell me more about the song. But I love the sound. It's kind of stripped back. And there's some excellent interplay between the two guitars that start around the 118 mark. So there's so much galloping energy in the rhythm guitar. And there's also this, obviously, a lead guitar that's kind of wailing along with it. But it's just interesting to me how, like, for my experience listening to this, the rhythm guitar commanded my attention more than the lead guitar as they're playing simultaneously. That's usually not the goal, I think, for most songs that have the two going on simultaneously.
Can I just
go
say,
ahead.
interject here? You're absolutely spot on. Rhythm guitar's Lou Reed, and he is one of the best at that. The only other guy that springs to mind straight away, there's loads probably, but Black Francis is the same. His rhythm, it's phenomenal. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's the star here as well.
And it not only is it the star, but I think it goes back to this kind of stripped back natural recording setting that doesn't have a lot of like tinkering going on, because more often than not, when songs feature a part like that, the lead guitar is brought up in the mix or brought forward in the mix, thus drowning out, or not drowning out, but burying to an extent some of what the rhythm is doing. And this was like they were seemingly on even ground. And despite that, the rhythm was so good. Like, it stood out to me a lot. And it's around this portion where Sally Mae is getting her shout outs. And I realize at points in this song, not throughout all of it, but at points in this song, this is sort of, I guess this is the other side of that production coin, where I felt like, and of course I'm going to say this, the bass could have been a little bit more forward in the mix, particularly during like the verse portions. Now, as the song progresses, I kind of have a realization that the bass is becoming easier and easier for me to pick out. And I don't know if that's just, a first listen thing. Maybe if I go back to this, it won't be a gripe that I have. But that was something that kind of stood out to me a little bit if I'm going to like split hairs. The 2:35 mark ushers in another sweet interaction between the guitars. And dare I say, this iteration of it is even more raucous and fun than the previous. Also, I can't believe that I'm saying this again, but the rhythm guitar is now firmly stealing the spotlight from the lead guitar, in my opinion. And that should take nothing away from the lead, but damn, the patterns and the energy coming from that rhythm guitar are commanding my attention and admiration. There's just so much like strum work going on that is very rhythmic, and it's like it pulls you in like tracker beams. I loved it. And at this point, I'm noticing the bass a bit more in the mix, and my gripe from earlier is somewhat placated. This is now the second time I've caught a reference to calamine lotion, and it won't be the last because I think there's another one. And I hope Lou's learned to avoid the poison ivy because that shit is never fun. Around the 4:15 mark, after another playful dance between the two guitars, the rhythm cuts out for the most part, leaving kind of the drums to carry a lot of the rhythmic weight of the song. And you can just catch little glimpses of lead licks being played. And I like this change of pace for what I believe is a verse, because I've griped about it before about how sometimes shit can be samishness. There can be samishness to songs that just repeat the same structure that they used for those other portions previous to it. And now it's like, or prior to it. And now it's, because they're tinkering with it and playing with it, it's giving this verse new life and a different sound. And it's like, I don't know, that little subtle choice, which is, they're not like splitting the atom or moving mountains, but just a little choice like that can kind of like give new energy to a part that you've already heard before. And during the portion, a little after the 5-minute mark, just before the final verse, the lead guitar comes in and out. And at this point, for some reason, and again, it's just about the tonality of the guitar, it's not about the music or the notation, but the sound of the lead guitar almost reminds me in very small bits and pieces of Back in the USSR by the Beatles. I don't know why that sound quality of that lead guitar coming in reminds me of the same guitar, like what Harrison's doing in that song. But that's just where my mind went. And perhaps it's just me and my ears playing tricks on me. But for a fleeting moment, I couldn't shake the perceived similarity. And when we are treated to more of, we're then treated to more of the stellar lead work at the 6-minute mark, and this sort of carries us to a fade out and completion of the song. And this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed hearing this kind of throwback sound via the production and the tones of those guitars, and also just the kind of, like I said, the atmosphere and like environment for how this was recorded. It had more of like an organic sound to it. Like, we're just gonna throw shit at the wall, hit play, or you hit play, throw shit at the wall, and see what sticks. And what stuck was a really cool bluesy kind of groove with some amazing rhythm guitar work.
Excellent, excellent. Yes. All right. First off, I will say, Velvet Underground, easily my top 10 bands of all time. Sister A, one of their tracks, is in my top 5 tracks of all time. I adore them. They're a really important band as well for the influence they had in loads of ways. I gave Greg a Velvet Underground track on If the Music. It's a live jam out that pretty much did the same thing for 8 minutes. And I think it drove him mad in the end. And I absolutely love it. It sort of, the rhythmic, it was 2 rhythm guitars, no lead with that song, What Goes On Live. And it just absolutely hypnotizes me. But yeah,
it does have this hypnotic quality to it for sure, even in this.
So the band has so many stories and legends to them. I will keep this brief and just have a little bit about them, just give you some context. So, formed in New York City in 1964. Interesting, the band took their name from a paperback by Michael Lee, published in 1963, called The Velvet Underground. It studied paraphilia in the USA. The book was republished in the UK in 1967 with the title Bizarre Sex Underground, which isn't quite as good a band name, but probably would have fitted later on in the late 70s as a decent band name then. Paraphilia is an experience of reoccurring or intense sexual arousal to atypical objects, places, situations, fantasies, behaviors, or individuals. To date, there is no broad scientific consensus for definite boundaries between what are considered unconventional sexual interests and kinks, fetishes, and paraphilias. So that's all clear then.
Sounds a lot like your relationship with records, actually.
So the lineup at first was Lou Reed, vocals, guitar, and occasionally piano. Sterling Morrison, guitar and bass. John Cale, the wonderful John Cale, bass, keyboards, and viola. And Mo Tucker, Maureen Tucker, drums, percussion. She replaced Angus MacLeese in 65 as the drummer, and she famously used hammers and spanners and all sorts of things, and was brutal in a very beautiful way. So in brief, they served as a house band for Andy Warhol at his studio, The Factory, and then films and stuff. He became their manager for the first album, which they brought out in 67, when he shoehorned in German singer and model Nico to varying degrees of success. Some songs it worked, some songs I really think she dragged it down. But there you go. They did 3 more albums. The wonderfully abrasive and hugely influential White Light, White Heat, 68, very experimental and created proto-punk, all sorts of stuff. The more accessible, The Velvet Underground, it's almost a bit sort of almost folksy in a way, very singer-songwriter almost. And then the almost commercial Loaded in 1970, that should have been a massive hit and wasn't. Doug Yule replaced John Cale for the latter 2 albums. Lou Reed famously quit halfway through a gig just before the release of Loaded, Just at the interval, he says, "Oh, by the way, guys, I'm leaving. Right, let's do the second half." Yeah. And Sterling Morrison and Maureen Tucker followed suit in '71. So Doug Yule continued with a name, the Velvet Underground, for a short while, and brought out the ill-fated and much hated album Squeeze in 1973 that most people don't even consider a real Velvet Underground album. And then the band finally dissolved. At the time, their recordings received critical indifference at best and scant commercial success. Famous quote, forgotten who it was now, just said there was probably only 4,000 people who bought their albums, but each one who bought their album formed a band. And that's kind of, they're seen as one of the most influential bands ever in experimental, underground, and alternative music. Through their subject matter, I mean, it probably was the first singing about transvestites and hookers, Lou Reed, but also experiments in sound that they made and their nihilistic attitudes, pretty much hugely influential in the development of punk, new wave, and loads of other genres. So after the split, Lou Reed went off, stellar career-ish. First solo album produced by Bowie, etc., etc. Then produced the worst album of all time ever, Music Man Machine. And John Cale went off and did really incredible and dangerously weird things and had a lot of cocaine, and then sorted himself out and produced amazing stuff as well. And aside from a slew of mostly poor quality bootlegs, I mean, Max's Kansas City album was done on a tape recorder, like one of those sort of oblong things on the bar. And that's a good recording of that gig, and you can actually hear people at the bar ordering drinks and trying to score drugs during the song. I mean, it's terrible. That's how poor quality some of the releases were, but people were desperate for Velvet Underground, so because they weren't really filmed apart from Warhol doing his stuff, so it wasn't a lot, footage of them live, things like that. So that was that we believed until in the early 80s. Verve Records began to prepare to re-release their first 3 albums on vinyl and CD for the first time. And apparently, in a drawer, they found 19 previously unreleased tracks, 5 Cale era tracks, and 14 lost album tracks, as they call them. So the story is, and you say this a lot when you're talking about Velvet Underground, the story is, because no one's ever had sure, but
everything's lore and legend.
Yeah, they moved from Verve Records, which have released their first 2 albums, to the parent company of Verve, which was MGM Records, and they signed a 2-album deal. They released their 3rd album, Velvet Underground, in March '69. Later that same year, there was a management change, and MGM brought in a new CEO who tried to revive the financially struggling record label by dumping unprofitable acts. So very quickly, Velvet Underground was shown the door. Now, they had, in the meantime, recorded 14 tracks for possible release as their second MGM album. All of these tracks were shelved and forgotten. Moteca later said there was a sense that it probably wouldn't be released by them. I figured it would just be picked up by the next record company, not realizing that MGM would own it. But then we switched labels, MGM wouldn't give up the tapes, and they were just forgotten. So they were discovered again in the early 80s. The cream of the 19 tracks was released in 1985 as a VU. The rest were released as Another View in 1986. VU is a selection of the 1969 tracks, as well as 2 previously unreleased Cale era tracks, Temptation Inside Your Heart and Stephanie Says. Since most of the material was available on multi-track, only Ocean is included in its original mix, the engineers were able to clean and remix the tracks. So you're absolutely spot on in your assumptions. These were really demo tracks.
Yeah.
And they went in the studio and pretty much played it live. Maybe multi-trackers that recorded it, but they just jammed out.
Yeah. So all that was done was just sort of cleaning up the otherwise finished product, not messing with levels or doing anything like that, just sort of cleaning up the audio. Wow. I mean, that's great.
Doug Yule refers to it as, did the demo album, because he doesn't see it as a finished work.
Yeah.
But I can't I just started getting into the Velvet Underground, I think, first with their first album, which is, oh, this is weird and shiny, leather, heroin, whatever. And then I heard Loaded, which is just catchy and amazing. And then this came out, and it's like, oh my God, it's another brilliant set of stuff. Because, it wasn't like now, if you get into a band, you can just go and search and download, stream, whatever. You had to save up and find someone that's actually bloody selling the Velvet Underground on vinyl or whatever, which they weren't as popular in the 80s as they are now. So yeah, tracks on this album, I Can't Stand It is just brilliant. Stephanie Says the Chaos songs are very similar in a way, same vibe as Sunday Morning off the first album. She's My Best Friend is a great song. Lisa Says is superb. Ocean, I think it's quite similar to New Age Offloaded. Critics love Ocean, think it's a great song. Foggy Ocean, one of my favorite Velvet Underground songs. Temptation Inside Your Heart is really fun. They sort of talk to each other during the song and make jokes about the Pope in a silver castle. And Lou Reed keeps saying, somebody shut the door. I said about 5 times. I don't think the door's ever open. But, one of these days is quite similar vein to Lonesome Cowboy Bill Offloaded. And this is kind of like, I think, a rehearsal for a lot of tracks Offloaded. Andy's Chest is average. Lou Reed did it again on his solo album, Transformer. And I'm sticking with you because I'm made out of glue. It's a sweet little sort of duet, and it's absolute nonsense. But by this stage, you're just completely in love with them, and you'll go with anything they say or do. Now, the CD issue of VU omits that start Foggy Notion, so all the studio mutterings, which I think is really interesting.
No, yeah, you need it. And it kind of like paints the picture of the whole, where they are, the whole setting.
Exactly. But, CDs suck all the joy and life out of songs, don't they? Anyway. But, yeah, so there you go. VU was ranked number 3 in the Albums of the Year for 1985 by NME. And Village Voice wrote, it's a goofy, relaxed, simultaneously conversational and obscure, an effect accentuated by the unfinished feel of the takes the band never prepared for public consumption. As a result, especially given Polygram's state-of-the-art remix, it's their most listenable record, which probably is true. But here's the lyrics, which do repeat itself, and then there's a bit more about the song afterwards. So here we go, rolling on one. She's over by the corner, got her hands by her sides. They hit her harder, till they thought she might die. Well, I got a foggy notion, do it again. Over by the corner, do it again. I got my Calamine notion, baby, do it again. Well, I got a foggy notion, do it again. And then there's a guitar break with Lou Reed chuckling in the middle for no reason. Then she made me do something that I never did before. I rushed right down to a flower store. I bought her a bundle, a beautiful batch. Don't you know something? She said, and right back. All right. Sally Mae, Sally Mae, Sally Mae, Sally Mae. Woo, Sally Mae, Sally Mae, Sally Mae, Sally Mae. All right. More guitar. She's over by the corner, got her hands by her sides. They hit her harder. Chuckle. Well, they thought she might die. Well, I got a fucking notion, do it again. Over in the corner, do it again. I got my Calamine notion. Do it again, baby. I got a fucking notion. Do it again. Woo. Yep. More guitar. And then again it repeats. She made me do something that I never did, but this is the quiet now bit that I never did before. Rushed right down to a flower store. I bought her a bundle, a beautiful batch. Now, baby, don't you know something? She said right back. Ooh. Ah, Sally Mae, Sally Mae, Sally Mae, Sally Mae. Woo, darling. Sally Mae, Sally Mae. Sally Mae, woo, Sally Mae. She's over by the corner. Yeah, she's got her hands by her sides. They hit her harder. Woo, baby, till they thought she might die. Ah, she's got a fucking notion. Do it again. Over in the corner, do it again. I got my Calamine notion, baby. Do it again. Well, I got a fucking notion. Do it again. All right. And then guitar jams out. Now, according to Paul Williams in the Velvet Underground companion book, this song is about trying to rouse a girl from amphetamine overdose. However, according to many contributors on various websites, apparently you don't have to wake someone from an amphetamine overdose. And slapping or punching someone may be recognized way by users of raising someone's level of consciousness following a barbiturate or heroin overdose, not speed, which as pointed out many times, Lou Reed would know all too well. So the song was originally credited as being written by Lou Reed, but this was later changed quite quickly to, and it depends which record you get, but either Lou Reed, Sterling Morris, and Doug Yule, Maureen Tucker, High Vice, or without no Lou Reed at all, and just Sterling Morris and Doug Yule, Maureen Tucker, and High Vice. So the story goes that VU's Foggy Notion was a mixture of 3 different songs with Lou's lyrics over it. Now, one of them is definitely a 1955 doo-wop single called Later for You, Baby, by the Solitaires. And that bit which goes, she made me do something that I never did before, rush right down to the flower store, a lyric straight from that doo-wop song. Just that sort of verse bit.
Well, plagiarism.
Another portion of the song was lifted apparently from a song called A Foggy Notion that High Vice had published earlier. According to Doug Yule, we always considered that song a bit of a throwaway. It was a song you played when you were running out of tunes and you needed more time. It's like Sister A without the esoteric language, a combination of 2 or 3 rock songs. In fact, the middle of it, I think, is a direct cop from an old rock and roll song, Sally Mae, Sally Mae. Now, High Vice had a reputation of being mob connected, which he denied later. However, at that time, would-be thieves and bootleggers would have feared for their health stealing from one of his songs, so he got the credit.
Nice.
So yeah, it's funny. And there's 1,001 stories you can talk about with Vernon Rand and Lou Reed. Actually, his solo stuff is interesting as hell. I can't understate my love of Velvet Underground, and this would rank in my top 5 of their songs.
Okay.
It's just this infectious quality. It's not one of their best songs. Don't but there's the infectious nature of listening to it. You are hearing people who are clearly enjoying themselves, and that isn't always something you'd hear listen to Velvet Underground.
Given the nature of his abrupt departure, it sounded like there were probably some brooding feelings beneath the surface there.
I mean, he got the band to boot out John Cale, and they didn't really realize before the meeting that's what was going to happen, and he basically turned them all, and he was writing all the songs and all the music, so without him there was no Velvet Underground, so they went along with what he said, and out went John Cale, rather bitterly. So yeah, he's a abrasive character, Lou Reed, but talented as hell, but they're a fantastic band, and this is a sort of lighter, fun side of them. You perhaps got a little bit of Loaded as well, but so you don't often think straight away. You think Vincent Furs, Wait for the Man, Heroin, Sister Ray, and these are all songs which are very influential and cool and groovy and weird.
This song didn't feel as New York City during that time as a lot of Velvet Underground stuff that I've heard, which isn't a lot compared to what like your vast knowledge of the band. But from what I've heard, they're so quintessentially New York 70s gritty heroin band, and then you hear this and it's like, oh, this is like just classic kind of blues stuff almost, and it kind of caught me off guard, but it was a pleasant surprise for sure.
Definitely, because I mean this all would come from Greenwich Village, the first was the folk revival in Greenwich Village, which made it a cool place, and then the second sort of trance of interesting people were Warhol and his cohorts, and his terrible pop art and really pretentious films. I didn't buy into any of this shit, by the way. But and all the nonsense. And I mean, Malcolm McLaren took a lot from Warhol, I think, in terms of how to manage a band. Bullshit, basically. I often wondered if Warhol was actually awake behind those glasses half the time. I think he was absolutely Xanaxed out of his head and just lied back there. You couldn't tell. But anyway, I'm sure he's much loved was by his friends or whatever. So I will wrap things up and say thank you so much for listening to this, Andy. Folks out there, tell us what you think of this song in particular, and of Velvet Underground in general. If you have knowledge of Velvet Underground, what do you think of this album, VU, how it compares to the others? I think it's a wonderful little slice of something a little bit different, and showed the way the band, they were trying to get more commercial. Lou Reed wanted to be popular, not just cool and crazy. And I think this shows that progression, which would have been loaded afterwards. So yeah, drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, if you haven't already subscribed, please do. And I feel I have a foggy notion after that song you will want to subscribe.
Oh, man.
That said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.